Welcome to Mick and the Psychic, where we leave no stone unturned as we explore all things outside the apparent physical realm.
There is no intent to teach or make you believe or disbelieve anything. It is just a safe space to listen and explore with us.
So for this next episode, you have permission to open your heart and mind as you join myself and Xavier on this deep dive into the unknown.
Something stopped you, something just made you, that's me working psychically. That evening we did the session. He has gone back to being a child. He's in the corridor at school. There is a black shadow. He's panting. We are here for the podcast. My friends are in Australia, and I'm here in wonderful England. The sun is shining. I have my coffee. We're good to go. Huh.
This is amazing. And this is how we're starting. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Fil Woodhouse with us today on this podcast. That is her actual accent, but she's going to try and put on an English London accent. Thankfully, well, let's hope she doesn't have a Scouser accent, or we're going to have like subtitles and maybe some show notes for you if you're just listening on.
It's got to be north, though, not south.
Yeah. North, exactly. North, love. North of the river.
We're going to do our best not to do accents that are not our own, because I actually don't want to be cancelled. I know you guys don't care. But we have Fil on the show now. Fil Woodhouse is basically, Xavier and I were talking about it. It's basically if Xavier and I had a baby, we'd be in trouble by our spouses. And also it would be Fil Woodhouse, because Fil is she's a hypnotherapist. She specializes in past life regression and regression therapy with her hypnosis, as well as she calls it spiritual hypnosis. I think that's what I do as well. I just don't know what to call it. And she's also a bloody psychic medium as well. She's a psychic and a medium. She does NLP. What else do you do? TFT. I'm not reading that. I'm just looking down.
Oh, tapping. Yeah, TFT.
The tapping, all that sort of la la la. And she's, oh gosh, she bangs on about the inner child therapy. So there's a whole lot of other therapies that go on and modalities that go on. But we are excited to have you on the show, Fil, because you're like a hybrid Mick and the Psychic.
Yes.
Very excited about it.
Why are we doing like a stand?
Well, welcome to the show. Sorry for throwing you under the bus by starting off the podcast with you doing it terrible accent.
Tell their friends he's just taking the piss.
Yeah. Is that English accent? That's so bad.
No, it wasn't English. It was a little bit Kiwi. I didn't mean that. It just came out. I wasn't trying to do anything.
That's a bit deceptive. Sorry to my friend Chris, who's probably Fish Chips.
That's a very most unprofessional intro we've ever done.
Chops.
Fish and chips, cup of tea, Rosie Lee, a little bit of Cockney. Baked beans, jeans.
I'm a little bit insulted because you say us Australians are just drunk cockneys. That's basically our accent, isn't it? We're drunk cockneys. And you know what? We'll take it. But Fil, welcome to the show. Can we not talk accents, because no one gives a shit about that?
Smiling too much.
That's a different show. I mean, yeah, just mess around with the algorithm. But yeah, you'll end up with, there's a bit of humour there. Who knows?
So for those trying to listen that haven't switched this off yet,
they're waiting for the good parts. They're waiting for the good parts.
Thanks for
they're waiting to see what I do with this. That's what they're waiting for.
The ones listening that can't see that are going to be very sad.
Yeah, it's a candle with a vagina and an ass. But basically, I'm forced to work with Fil as she's part of the team of hypnotherapists that do past life regressions.
Such a hardship on you, Michael.
Burgess. And also I have to work with optimistic Xavier on this podcast, as you know. And unfortunately, I've done kind of like the Seinfeld, where worlds have collided, where his wife and his friends got together, and it was.
Oh, I know, how rude.
I'm playing that game.
He gang up on you.
So probably because you're both psychic. Welcome to the show, Fil. We've got a lot, I think, to talk about. Because can I start, Opti? Because I'm presuming you don't have any questions until the thing starts, because that's how you roll.
I have, between you two. Chuck it at me.
Yeah,
chuck it at me.
Just remember to take turns, though.
Yeah, where do you get off being a hypnotherapist and a psychic? Like,
How
how
did
does
that come
kind of
about?
that work? Because anyone that's listened to any of our podcasts know that with the way that I work, and this is still the way that Phil works as well, because we're from the same kind of school of hypnotherapy, we get out of the way and we let the higher self bring stuff in. So we're not putting stuff in people's mind and putting settings and scenarios. We literally just drag them into the unconscious and then see what happens and then carry them through safely. How do you balance like doing hypnotherapy where you're working with the person's other higher self and then also being a psychic yourself where, you know, you obviously are sitting there seeing stuff and experiencing stuff and maybe even seeing relatives and stuff. How do you navigate both of those jobs together, or is it just one crazy job?
It's, to me, because I don't know any different.
Yeah, this is a good point. Yeah.
I don't know.
Dumb
I don't
question.
know any different.
On to you, Xavier. Okay, if you could have some
I don't know any different. So for me, when someone comes, for example, I had a client come and I kept getting dad, something to do with dad. And I could see, you know, it's the first time to a bit of hypnotherapy. And I said, before we start, I'm getting something to do with your dad. Does that make sense to you? Because I just feel his presence around. And at that point, she disclosed that he passed away and stuff was going on. And so I gave her that message, which in turn, it kind of made her feel relaxed because she got the answer she needed. So then we were able to continue with the session because that was at the back of her mind.
Got you. Yeah.
So in that sense, that's working mediumistically because I can feel, you know, this presence. Other times, you know, I've met people like when I've worked in person, I remember just looking at the person, first meeting them, and I thought, there's something going on here. There's a bit of a weird energy. And that's the thing, you understand that energy. When you've worked with it and you've got that experience, you know what they're coming with or what's around them. Because sometimes it can be a bit on the dark side or something that's just attached to them. And I remember saying to this person, no doubt we'll find out. And we did during the session. She had some kind of attachment that had fed into her own bits and pieces and, you know, using
So you
regression
still hold back a bit. So sometimes you may hold back a bit because you let things come out.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you know, so you can prepare for it.
Well, yeah, it's because there's energy, and I don't know precisely at that point. I didn't know precisely for that client, so I wasn't sure what it was, but I just felt there was just something because, you know, on the surface everything's fine, but there's an energy around them that it's hitting me, if that makes sense. It's affecting, or I'm picking up on it.
That's interesting. I was just thinking, because I've never really felt like I wanted to learn hypnotherapy because I feel like the psychic stuff would kind of get in the way and they kind of contradict themselves. So like when I have a client, they sit there and they just start telling me about their life and they're telling me some issues they have and why they feel like they need to come. And then their higher self is filling in the blanks for me. So I'm not sure if like in hypnotherapy, when you're not supposed to be leading them or anything because they're experiencing everything themselves, you would still maybe get some fill in the blanks that could help them if they do get stuck to bring them back on track because you're seeing things that they're not sure how to articulate or something like that. Like, I think that's what would happen if I was doing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing when, you know, I work with regression with some clients and I know there's something else because I can feel it. We're working on Zoom, but I can feel there's a niggle, there's something stuck. So I would just ask the subconscious if there is anything else that needs to come through.
Without popping the idea in their head, so you're not leading them.
If there's anything else, if there's nothing, the finger will not go up. If there is, then the finger will come up. And then it's about asking those intelligent questions to get them to where they need to go sometimes.
Explain the finger. Finger going
so
up.
we use
So that's pretty
we
rare.
use something
Took me that finger. I'll do that from now on.
Do that again.
Hold two fists in front, and then like for yes, the finger goes up. Explain That's
So
good.
sorry for those of your viewers that don't know what the finger
Don't
is,
worry.
or it's called the IMR, it's called the idiomotor response. So what we do after, guiding a person into trance, we connect their subconscious to a part of, to either hand. It's usually the non-dominant, or well, it's usually, yeah. So
Okay.
it can be a hand, it could be a finger, it could be a hand, it could be two, and yeah, it's just very. So instead of the person answering yes or no, it's the subconscious, and that will raise up. So to signal yes, raise up; to signal no, just keep it resting. Simple as that. So the subconscious will always know if there's something else that needs to come through, but it's asking those questions. If there is something else, if it's connected to that, or is it something else? And again, the finger will rise up, yes or no.
It's a really good tool to be able to not get in the way and hold the space and allow the subconscious or the higher self or the soul or whatever you want to call it, to kind of run the session. So traditionally using hypnotherapy can, to be fair, it's really, really difficult. You're working with people in an altered state of consciousness. You have to ask questions to work out where it goes. But as everyone knows, questions can be quite leading.
Yeah.
So, there's been a lot of advancements in hypnotherapy, at least through the work that Steve Burgess has done. Not many other people do it that way, where you can find ways to stay out of the way and not lead as much. And one of those is, getting the idiomotor response. Of getting
It's not
yeses and
pretty
nos.
therapy, is it, Michael? I always say to my clients, it's not pretty therapy. If you
Can
want pretty,
be. It's often not.
it's often not. If you're dealing with traumas and
With
issues,
trauma.
yeah, it's not going to be pretty therapy. I'm not the hypnotherapist who's going to ask the person to sit or lay down and then just read off a script and then say you're going to be okay. No, you're asking them to do the work, which they have to do.
But they do it subconsciously, so at least they don't have to come up with stuff. Stuff will come up, but it's going to be the shit where it's really, really confronting that you haven't consciously gone through yourself before, because it's really confronting. So it's not going to be easy. But I don't think, that's interesting, because a lot of the really good psychics I know, like yourself, Xavier, are not going to sugarcoat stuff. It's like, look, you might not like me and you might walk away going, she's terrible, but I'm going to tell you what's in front of me.
Yeah, I always say, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear.
Which sucks, because you go to a psychic because you want, how do I make $1 million? Or how do I, it's like, that's not.
They don't come to me if they want to know that. I think they just intuitively, they know that's not what they're going to get an answer.
No.
How
are you going to create the $1 million is more of the question.
People always asking, what are the lottery numbers? I'm like, well, if I knew that, it doesn't work that way.
No.
I don't think they really know. I don't think they really want it. I think there's something that's interesting with the lottery numbers thing, because I get that as a hypnotherapist. Like, it's hypnosis. I'm not a psychic. What the hell are you guys talking about?
The dimension that knows the numbers.
Even I get that. But it's crazy, because it's like, if you win the lottery, then you're still basing all of your happiness on a whole lot of money that's come along outside of your control or anything anyway. Wouldn't it be better to be happy whether you had money or not, rather than be happy just because there's money coming in? And the obvious answer is yes, but the easier answer is no, just give me the lottery numbers. Speaking of which, Xavier's just received her cup of tea from her husband, the great Daniel Brito.
He just snuck it in.
Who disagrees with that whole thing and would just like the lottery numbers. We all know
would.
that, sure.
If he's this big, he'd get very cranky.
It does come down to that. But something you brought up was around that kind of, sometimes there's a couple of negative things that come through. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about specifically, Phil, is around some of that stuff that comes up a lot for you. It's come up for me from different areas. And you know, it's come up with Xavier or anyone that works in this kind of realm. But you've got a different kind of background. You know, you
Yes.
actually use it's probably the last verses of the Torah, I presume, that you use for that, but
I use
not the
what?
Torah, the Quran.
Quran. So I've got an Islamic background.
Here we go. Go.
So I was born as a Muslim. I've spent 7 years in Egypt as well. My first husband was a spiritual person. He, you know, like a shaman. So I was exposed to, you know, certain things, you know, talismans and how they work and what you use and what passages of the Quran that you read, recite, and that is another way that I work. So when I'm working, or when I have worked with people that have had spirit attachments, for example, that have come to my house, I have, and even, you know, on Zoom, I have sat and read certain passages certain amount of times. I've got my little clicky here. The last time I read was 99. After today's show, it will be, I've got another client, and it'll be 199. And the reason why I got the message, I got that sort of download that you have to read a certain amount or over a certain amount, is because I'm not fasting, I'm not praying 5 times a day. So to honor the prayer and the angels that were associated with that passage, I have to read over a certain amount of times.
That is so interesting. How did you get that information?
It just came. It just came.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
That's the answer always. It's just...
We want you to read because you are not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing the other. So you need to honor us and show us your commitment and dedication, and then we are with you 100%.
Wow.
So when I do a blessing, for example, if I've been to the toilet, I then have to have my ablutions, I'll have a shower. So obviously I have today, so later on for the blessing, I will do that. And if I'm working with a gentleman, for example, they've come round, for example, I went to pick up someone from the station who was coming from London. I'm like, please don't touch me. Sit in the car, don't shake my hands, because when you do, that means I'm not, you know, I have to redo my ablutions.
My gosh, so you're like following Sharia law for the period of where you're doing the
and no nail
blessing.
varnish. No nail varnish either. No nail varnish, which is a bit of a bummer because I've got loads of lovely colours upstairs.
Can you just wear it and then take it off when you start doing the, like, or how often are you doing it?
By the time I put it on,
it's a lot of work. Yeah,
too much work.
It's a lot of faffing around. You know, I'd get through probably bottles of you know, remover. So yeah.
And you know that they're gonna know if you cheat, like, so
I can't. If I'm gonna do it, I do it 100% or not at all. Or not at all. And you know, you're working with people from, you know, different faiths. And not recently, some time ago, I was working with a client in it was crazy because it was a referral from Steve, and Steve said, right, I've got someone that'd like a reading, Phil. So the day of the reading came, and the reading was going to be done of an evening, you know, just a card reading. And I just felt a niggle. I can feel it within my chest. It's like, something's not right here. This person, something's amiss. So I phoned Steve that morning. I said, Steve, this client, I said, something's just not right, and I don't know what it is, but just something's not sitting right with me. It's like, Phil, I'm not going to tell you anything. I said, I don't want you to. I'm not asking you to. That's not how it goes. You know, we know that, but I'm just putting it out there. This is what I'm feeling. So I did the reading, and you know, as I'm shuffling, stuff's coming through, because sometimes I've got the cards here. I love my cards. Sometimes
that's my favorite deck. That's what I use every day.
really?
Is that
Do you use that same deck?
No way.
No way.
That's my deck. Like,
no way, Xavier.
Go get it. Go get it. Prove it.
Go, girlfriend.
Everybody knows that, like, this is
No.
No.
That's so weird. There's so many decks in the world. Sorry for interrupting, but I just
There
went,
are.
no. When I saw the back of it, I was like,
I was
no.
going to say,
what?
I was going to say hundreds of thousands. It's not hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
I reckon there's
Billions.
millions of decks. It's
Billions.
like books. How many books are there in the
I
world?
won these in a competition, so they were meant for me. So, yeah.
Oh,
They were
my.
meant- do you know what? That's just mad.
Oh, this is those two worlds crashing again. This is bullshit.
I
I
love
hate
it.
this.
I love
This
it.
is not good.
This
Sorry.
is
Okay.
yeah. But
All right.
yeah.
So you got the
Sorry,
same
back where we
deck.
were.
Righto.
going
Okay.
back to
Go
this
back
client,
to
so
it.
I felt
Please move
of
on.
an evening shuffling, and I got it. There's something in the house.
In your
There's
house?
no, in his house.
Oh,
You picked up the thing
There's,
that was.
there's something in the house. Something in the house that wants to. It's quite destructive.
Okay.
So I ask him,
Oh,
the house that
Yeah.
you're living in, I mean, notice anything? So well, there's been a lot of people that have moved in and out, it's a forever home, but there's been a lot of. So I told him at the end, he's like, yep, that kind of, so what do we do? So we decided that I would get some incense. I'll show it to you here. I've got my incense here. I've got sandalwood.
okay. Yeah.
oh, cool.
Yeah. Sandalwood, and I've got my Egyptian blend.
Oh,
And I've got my frankincense and myrrh.
Yeah.
So
And myrrh. How big
and
was it?
myrrh.
really
Yeah,
just
yeah. But then because when I've been in Egypt, this is what's being used. And because of my ex-husband, knowing that sandalwood is great for negativity and dispelling stuff like that, entities and stuff. Yeah. So I said, right, I'm gonna bless it. You're gonna watch on Zoom or FaceTime. He did it. And then I'm gonna send it to you along with some water, which he did. And then I told him what to do. You need to be showered, clean. Likewise, we'll do the work. Took it around the house. Sent in the little coal as well, around the bottom, upstairs. Okay. Go back to the room with the blue walls. Oh, they're both blue. Like, no, you're going to go into that one. Okay. I said, do you know why we're in here? Yes. There was something in the room. Little man couldn't sleep in there. He's got children. Okay. We did the blessing. He just felt a bit weird. He had to sit down. And then his wife had gone downstairs and come back. And basically, I said, has there been a shift? She felt a shift. But what had happened, what he had failed to mention to me before, was that on the bed sleeping, he'd been in there, or his wife had been in there, and she felt something come and sit on the bed. Something in there. We worked maybe another 2 or 3 times, but after that was fine. It shifted.
Wow.
cool.
That's the power of prayer. So I'm a big believer in it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what do you think that was? Do you think that, like, you talk a lot about I think in spirits are jinn, is that right? The
You
in
do get
between
jinn.
the in between spirits are jinn? Is that
No,
right?
no. Jinn is another. We are human. Yeah.
Wow.
Jinn,
Yeah.
spirit, us as spirit, when we die, we are spirit souls.
Okay, yeah.
Jinn is another being that has been created.
Ah, okay. So
Oh,
not
yeah.
human
Now make them
disembodied
smokeless,
spirit, it's something
smokeless
else.
fire. Yeah, so they can also inhabit, and this is what I understand from my time in Egypt, they inhabit houses that have not had a lot, that have been vacant.
Right.
So they're
And
squatters.
they can befriend, yeah. And they can befriend or attach themselves to humans as well.
Why do they want to do that?
Because some of them are mischievous.
They're just cheeky. Okay.
They've got personalities. They're cheeky. Some of them are good and some of them are not going to be good.
When you mentioned this one, I kind of sensed them as a giant, which is weird. I was like, why am I seeing a giant? Like, it was just a really big energy. could have been their personality, but yeah, they just felt really big. But you said they sat on the bed, so then I'm like, I don't know.
Sat on the bed. So felt
Well, they
someone
could
on
have
the
put their foot on the bed if it's a giant.
so so there's that way of working too. And sometimes, like I said, with the hypnotherapy, I had another client, and so when someone is carrying that energy, they're just heavy. They just feel heavy. Their frame may not be, but they feel heavy. And I just looked, I thought, shit, there's something there. And did the hypnotherapy, and it was really crazy because that afternoon, because I spoke with him in the afternoon, I had a session with him of an evening, and I said, okay, in the afternoon, I said, there was a point when, because he's a doctor, I said, there was a point when you were in the corridor and something stopped you, something just made you, that's me working psychically. He's like, and he mentioned 3 things, but one of the things he mentioned is that he'd caught a reflection of himself. And I said, yes.
Which corridor are you saying?
In the hospital. He was working in the hospital. He's a doctor in a hospital.
Okay,
yeah?
okay.
So I said, I felt that. It's like, yes, I caught my reflection. I'm like, okay. That evening we did the session. He has gone back to being a child. He's in the corridor at school. There is a black shadow. He's panting. I said, what's going on? He said, I feel scared. I said, don't worry, I'm here, I'm with you. I've got this, we've got this, you're good. What had transpired is that something had attached itself to him, that it carried from a past life, because he had been responsible for the death of that spirit or that person in a past life. That spirit was with him in this lifetime. The aim of looking to fuck up his life.
Okay.
They didn't go through a healing and clearing, did they?
No, but that I've seen that. I've seen that happen where, particularly if it's a traumatic death, not always a traumatic death, but sometimes there's a traumatic death or something where they feel cheated or they're just, there's a lot of emotion with the death where they're shocked or feel cheated, that they hang there.
So they don't go to life.
They stay there because they're not focused. No, they're not focused on going on to the next step because they're just so focused on what happened. So I've seen that in sessions before as well. So sometimes they just get so uber focused. It's interesting in some of the Hindu texts as well. They talk about what you are. You are what you believe you are when you die.
Yes.
That makes sense. So sometimes that can overpower. So that's what the reality is for that personality, I should say. So that personality hangs around.
I wonder if there's also an element of so not just for the person who died, but for the person like that died when they felt like they were done wrong, or there's a lot of emotion behind it, but also for the person who murdered them. It's not a punishment, it's like a karma, but it's a lesson for them to carry on to the next life, so they can figure out how to get it removed, to do better, because they've got this haunting kind of stress behind them. So he became a doctor to help people.
Yes.
Maybe that's why he's so inspired to help, because he's had this attachment and he feels like he needs to do some good to, like, there's all these different things that can be part of it. So there's like a bit of both, I wonder, like
more so than that though. I reckon there's more to that as well. Like
probably.
You've talked about how like when you go to funerals, I don't know if you get the same thing, Phil, where you see the person.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. So
no,
you've talked how at funerals you see the person
they're always at the
that
funeral.
has died is always at the funeral, and there's that I've heard from many different areas. I don't know if it's true, but I've heard from different sides that where you put your attention when you've got your attention to someone that's passed, it kind of draws them in. So I wonder if in the death of the person, there's that side of it where they're still hooked on, you know, whatever emotion was there when they died, and also the person that maybe had killed them and the emotion behind that, and their constant focus even after the death of that person has helped. Like maybe it's a shit show of a couple of things pulling them.
And if you believe
together.
that if you believe in the fact that we choose why we come here, and the lessons that we want to experience, it's like he could have given permission for that experience so they can learn and go through it and see, because you know that before you choose. Not everyone might believe that, but I do. That you're choosing that, so you might have chosen that attachment to come through, so you can, knowing that one day you might meet Phil and get it all cleared and sorted out and go through that experience and learn a bit more about themselves at that point in their life when they need to. What do you reckon, Phil? We're talking. It's your interview.
You know what? It all happens for a reason. Yes, I mean, I do feel that there was something to be learned and gained from that experience and an understanding, because I think it's not just about what's happened, but also that person knowing how certain things can impact on people and their mental health as well.
Yeah.
You're a doctor. Sometimes you can't explain what's going on for a person. Then, okay, let's look outside the box, just like he did.
Definitely opened his mind.
At the moment in his time, in his life, he was feeling quite low. And after that, it just like lifted. It lifted and shifted. And I could see it in his face after. It's like, oh, it's same person, but something has lifted. And, you know, I say that because when I've worked with somebody else in the same, you know, face to face indoors here, and I said to them after we'd done the blessing, I said, look at your face now in the mirror. I can see there's a difference. I can see a difference, a subtle difference, but it's there. It's like, I feel lighter. I feel. So it's also making people aware that stuff like that also exists.
Yeah.
And how it impacts and affects other people. Because where it was once upon a time really common, and it is common in certain sort of, you know, certain countries and cultures, I think a lot of that is also kind of lost in the Western world, if that makes sense.
I think it does, because you're talking about the age of cultures. So, you know, in Australia, let's say Australia, you know, our culture is based on a lot of the English culture, or Irish, Scottish, or wherever the hell they've come from. So European culture is only 200 or so years old, you know, and you look at the indigenous culture, the First Nation peoples, where there's 220 something different tribes, and you look at their connection to spirit, and there's a completely different understanding than what we have. You know, I think it comes back to the age of the culture as well. And you look at people that are connected to, I guess, the roots of their culture. So maybe some of the Gaelic, or I'm just thinking the Western world, you know, Germanic cultures where a lot of the people from the UK have come from. Those people that are really connected to that are very, very spiritual, you know, or pagan, you know, and then you look at the newer cultures, and it's like, ooh, not so much. So it's interesting. I think it comes back to the age of that knowledge, and I wonder where that knowledge kind of went away. You know, it's like there's a time before us where it was way clearer. So the closer we get to that, maybe.
I think because, like in the UK, there was that persecution. Women were persecuted. They were called witches.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was that persecution. I think maybe that's what drove it underground. I don't know. I'm not a historian, but I know there was people were persecuted for, you know, witchcraft and healing and stuff like that. But you know, in other cultures, that's just the norm. You know, this is what you do if this is going on with you, or you go to that person, or you take this, and you know, you go to Cairo, where I've been, and you go to the certain spice shops, massive, and they've got everything. You go in there, it's like a chemist. You can walk in and it's like, well, if you've got this going on, we'll take the oil of this or the oil of that, you know, oil of carrot. I didn't realize carrots were oily, but it's not, it's the seeds, you know. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's just, yeah, it's very natural, all the natural remedies. So, but yeah, but that's another story for another time.
It's
But yeah,
interesting. We've talked a bit when I was in Omdurman, which is in Khartoum, which was Egypt, yeah, which is now Sudan. They have those spice markets and things as well, and it's interesting the kind of connections they have there. And that was probably a place where I felt, for the first time, I've really felt a strong spiritual energy, very, very strong. The way I described it in my journal was shadows in the dark. That was the only way I could explain these figures, that it was dark and I could see shadow people in the dark. And that doesn't make sense because it's dark. So it's not like streets in Western world where there's street lights. It's like, there's no, it's Khartoum. It's well lit up. But it was very interesting. It was almost like a lot of, the way I understood it back then was spiritual warfare. But it was just like there was so many energies there where you had some underground churches and you had some, and the rest of it was like it's a Muslim state. So there's, you know, that there was just so much tension. But I saw like kind of shadow people there as well. It was quite strange that other people didn't see as well, but they were affecting other people. So you think like some of these, you know, older cultures have an understanding of these things better than these newer cultures that, you know, you and I are all, well, the three of us are all living in, that potentially can be affected by these things that older cultures understand. Like, is that where the answer is?
The answer.
Yeah, I
when
mean,
you
to be able to
connect,
navigate, because we have a lot of things, like particularly things like mental health, understanding the difference between someone that has schizophrenia and someone that's possessed. I
it's
don't
the
know, is
energy,
that interpretation?
Michael.
Is that
It's the
something
energy.
critical?
It's the
Yeah,
energy.
right.
The energy. You can see it in someone's face. You can see it. There's something going on. And the great thing with the hypnotherapy is that, you know, you can ask the subconscious, is there something
Sure.
else?
Yeah.
Is there something else? And the subconscious may go up like that. For example, the other day, I had a client and she had 2 IMLs on either hand.
Oh,
And
okay.
but because she felt there was 2 parts of her, there was another part that wasn't connected. So the finger was going up for that part. She was connecting. I'm getting a chill now. Ooh. She was getting that part come through, as well as the physical part that was there in front of me. And she said to me, Phil, I haven't cried since I was 16. And she cried twice in the session. And it was just because I had to figure out why the 2 fingers, and then I realized there's still getting a chill again. Oh, the 2 parts. And that was powerful.
So what are the 2 parts? One of them was the person and one of them was what? What was the other?
That's a part of them that hasn't, it's almost like there's a parallel that hasn't come down. They haven't formed as the one person in front. That part is somewhere else.
Right.
But it's the same, you know, she's there. There's another part of her. There's a part of me that doesn't feel that's that's connected or doesn't feel da da da, and it's just that part was just coming through and coming as whole.
It feels a bit like, to me, like she, like you're saying, there's another, like a parallel universe, like another dimension, and she's so tuned in that she's picking up on the other version of her that has some differences because of choices, and they might be on similar path, but a couple of things are different. Like she's picking up on that. Then they need to be like actually segregated so they can go on their normal path without picking up on each other's stuff. That's what I was just getting.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that was a long session. We was in trance she was in trance for 2.5 hours. And this is the other thing that happens when people are in trance, is they lose all concept of time. Time gets distorted. So when I asked her, and how long do you think you're in trance for at the end? I said, don't look at the clock. Don't. She's like, 20 minutes? I'm like, no, it was 2.5 hours, because I have the music on my laptop going, and that's 1 hour and 14 minutes and X amount of seconds. I'm like, that's run twice.
Wow.
She's like, oh, I wasn't aware. I said, I was. And then I had another lady, and the issue was alopecia and anxiety. Okay. And this was a classical past life with a twist to it. So she's gone into that past life. See myself, I'm a girl, I'm 14 years old, and I'm by the river. I'm being watched. Okay, who's watching you? There's a guy watching me. He's pulling my hair. Okay, what's happening next? And she paused. Okay. She ends up marrying him. He's older. Next scene. She's in the water. She's drowning herself because she doesn't want to be with this person. She was in, first it was said she felt like it was Latin American, then it was like India. She said she was wearing a yellow sari. And when her hair was pulled, she was about 15 in that life, but at 15 or 14 years old in this lifetime, she lost her hair. She said, I had long black hair.
Wow.
Alopecia setting. Okay. So she's gone into spirit, and then she's come back. She's like, when I've come back, I'm getting a chill again. A part of me has gone into a bottle, and the other part of me has come back. There's a part of me in the bottle.
Jeannie?
That's why. I thought, okay, part of you is in the bottle, and then I'm thinking Asia, India, South America, wherever it is, because we kind of flitted. And I'm thinking, so that cultural understanding certain cultures, witchcraft and stuff, people do stuff with people's hair, their toenails comes into play. I'm like, okay. I said, you're saying there's a part of you in the bottle, okay. Is that because has something been done in that lifetime that a part of you? Yes. What transpired is that the husband in that past life, he had taken her hair so that she would always remain with him.
The intention behind like a spell, like.
And then I'm thinking, and what did that your hair, what did it represent? Because then I'm thinking Samson and Delilah.
Oh, what strength. Yeah.
Strength, she says. That's my strength. So in an essence, her hair was taken so that she would be tied to him, or she would never leave him. But it's come back means that she's come back not as a whole. There's a part of her missing, and that part is her strength.
At that age, when it happened for her in this life, when she's meant to be coming into her own and everything. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was quite powerful. And again, you're asking the questions. And because I can see it in my head, I'm thinking, because as you know, like the whirring of a computer as they're going through it, and I'm like, it's kind of it's rock, it's you know, the images of this leads to that, but I've got to ask the questions without leading.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to get a yes or a no answer. Does that mean as a result of that this is happening? Yes. For example, I had another client and I met her on a training course, and I looked at her, she was of Jewish descent, and I've done her some readings as well because I've messed around with the cards. I'm not saying messed around, I bring the cards and picking up stuff psychically. And I looked at her and I said, I know you're of the Jewish origin, your faith, but I feel there's a connection to you and the Holocaust, but not from, you know, the expected way in terms of your family, if they had gone through that. And when we did a session, took her down, guided her into trance. She's going down through the corridor to get to that lifetime, but I'm already seeing it. I'm thinking, shit, because I got the message. So she's there. Where are you? I'm someplace. There's lots of people. I'm up. Yeah, I'm getting the chill. I'm looking down at them. And what are you wearing? I'm wearing a uniform. I'm a guard.
Yeah.
Okay.
How does she go with that? Like being Jewish as well.
Exactly. We went back to when first signed up.
Cool.
And coming from a town, and it's a status, you know, that comes with it because you're working for the authorities. But then obviously the shit hits the fan. I didn't sign up for this, but I've got to do what I need to do, otherwise I will be killed as well. And you know, it was crazy because when we look at that time in history, we think, oh my days, you know, people did really bad things. But there's the other side of it where people were freaking scared because if they didn't, they would get killed themselves.
Yeah, the whole good guys, bad guys thing. Yeah.
But it was like, but I've not been that mean. I've been good to them as well. And it was all that was coming through as well. But yeah, it was just really that kind of blew me away. That one did. Blew me away.
I recently had a past life healing for a client that they were a guard that used to put Jewish people in the gas chamber. But in this one, I don't know, because I'm not really good with history and I don't know if it's true, if they were recorded or whatever, but this particular person that I helped clear, they, as a guard, they'd made eye contact with one of the women before they went in and had this really intense connection. And then they just put themselves in there with them because they had this massive guilt trip about what they were doing. And the other guards are arguing with him through the window, telling him to get out, and he just refused. So they just turned it on and he went with them all.
So that's how he suicided, was like.
Yeah, he put himself in there because he just had this massive amount of remorse after this eye contact connection, like felt like it was a soulmate or something, or he just had this massive guilt
It's like
trip.
a moment.
So
like
he
a real
cleared,
moment.
yeah, there was this massive amount of guilt with my client. Needed to clear that. Just thought that's interesting, the timing that you had the guard, and I was just like, that I just had that like about 2 weeks ago. Different. I love it. It's so interesting.
It is. And then so this was a proper spiritual experience whereby I was working with someone and, oh, you're spiritual and smoking. And I'm thinking, okay, let's see where we go to and what comes up, and, you know, traumas. And, oh, yes, I lost my son. Okay. That's quite
That's
traumatic.
a big one. That's there.
That's a big one.
That's up there.
And, you know, you feel it here. You feel it, you know, as a parent, but you know, he didn't get to say goodbye to his son. His son passed away in Australia. He was working with a friend and a wall fell down on him, and it was just like, gosh, yeah. That's devastating. And so guided him into trance and corridors. That's my go-to, corridors. Go down the corridor. And when he said to me, the corridor is all white, I knew where he was. Again, get a chill now. I knew where he was, and behind one of the doors, his son was there waiting.
Oh God! Wow.
How beautiful.
And that was quite emotional, because I think with the past life, yes, it's a past life. You can't relate. Yes, it might be a really sad situation for someone that's quite powerful, but when it's personal, that's another. That's deep.
That's so beautiful that you could help him see his son connect and say goodbye the way he wanted to. Because you can tell someone that, like I said it a million times, that they hear everything, they know, you know, it's you know, they get it. But obviously he needed to experience it himself, and that's why hypnotherapy is amazing. Yeah.
I think there's something though, because like one of the things that Exie and I actually got together was around the past life stuff. So Xavier does readings for people with their past lives, and then obviously I use hypnosis for people to experience their past life. And you could look on paper and go, oh, well, okay, cool. I think experiencing the past life will probably have more healing. But that's if you looked at, you don't see the whole picture, because the more I do the hypnosis, the more I realize there's something that is transposed between the person that's playing the role as the therapist and the person that's playing the role as the person getting therapy. And I use those words deliberately because it's kind of what's happening more in real life. And I found that there's something, the more I've done this, the more I've realized that it's not just words that I'm using and then they're having the whole experience. There's something happening in that. And I think that's where being psychic, you are actually, you're not just telling them something that you see.
Oh, no.
There's so much that's being transposed. And they feel that before they go to see the psychic, because they're already in a certain, you know, space, headspace. People that are more aware of this, what's going on subtly within them, will know, you know, as soon as they see a psychic, they're like, oh wow, I've got to speak to this person. You see that. So I think that, like, what happens with the hypnosis is this, I think there's the same thing that happens with, if you're doing it psychically, they're just what is it? Same shit, different bucket.
Yeah.
there's a transposing. Yeah, there's a transposing that happens where it's not like more real if you feel it in hypnosis, or more real if a psychic does something to you. I think there's something that happens between playing the role as the therapist and playing the role, or psychic and playing the role as the person getting that. There's a I feel that there's something that's transposed energy in that. Do you guys, is that like a no-brainer for you guys, I guess, as psychics, that definitely happens, or is that something that you found out later on as well?
I don't know, Phil, have you ever cleared past lives psychically and not with hypnosis?
No, because I've always.
What about before you learnt about hypnosis? Were you a psychic first?
I was a psychic first.
Yeah. So did you ever?
I was a psychic first. So
ever
not everyone would learn about past lives though, for the psychic style that I learnt when I was tuning in. Yeah.
I never. No. For me, because I've done my mediumship, and you know, and stuff like that, and I go to circles, so you know, you constantly train. I've just been to the Arthur Findlay College as well. Great day there.
Everyone's been there in the world. Every psychic I know except me.
You need to come. You need to come. Come and stay with me.
Every time I interview someone who's psychic, they've been there. I'm like, oh God.
She's from a different college, I think. This is like a Harvard and what's it? It's a Harvard and a Yale thing. She's from a different alumni, I think.
I'm probably go to Hogwarts instead.
Hogwarts,
the real Hogwarts. You know?
Do you know what? It does remind you of Hogwarts.
It sounds like it's basically Hogwarts.
It is lovely. It was really, you know, and I've learned so much as well. I did aura readings, and I'll have to share that with you, you know, one-to-one. But yeah, yeah, I've never, for me, past life regression, it only came about because of the training that I've done, because I knew that I just felt I had to do it. And I remember when I was doing my training for my hypnotherapy training, the training was meant to take place in March, and my tutor was like, "Oh no, you wouldn't have learned enough to be able to do it." And then it got moved to June, and I was like, "Great, I can now do it." And the rest is history. Something just, it was like, that's your path. So for example, so I did 2 years of a counselling course.
Yeah, that's good.
And I did 2 years of a counselling course. I did my level 2 and my level 3, and then my level 4 would have been 2 more years to complete. But I didn't get put through for my level 4. And at the time I was extremely angry. And I remember going to I'm being quite honest in this respect, in terms of, putting it on the line. Not that I'm not at other times, but yeah. But it's,
We get you.
you get me. So I remember going to the course and I was raging. Like the cartoons, they got steam coming out of the ears. That's me.
Yeah.
That was me. That was me. And I remember sitting in front of my tutor, and suddenly, I don't know what happened, that rage went from full on burning volcanic fire to ice. And I got the message, honestly, it just went like that. I was sitting in front of her and I got the message, she's vulnerable. And I was like, oh. And instead of hate that I had for her at that moment, and that's a strong word, but that's exactly how I felt, because it was rage. I felt love.
Wow.
She was vulnerable. She was vulnerable. But what that did, that tipped me from my axis of going that way. It went the other way, the right way, because I had the skills and the theory from counselling, which is applied for hypnotherapy, because you need to know how to listen, how to restate and paraphrase, because sometimes people need to hear their own words said back to them in a session, not in a patronizing way, but just in a way that kind of impacts on them. And that's what it did. It gave me those skills and saved me a shitload of money as well. But that was, for me, that's where it all stemmed from. Doing that, it's like something was saying, right, no, you're not going to do that, you're going to go this way, because that's where you can help people. You'll be much more effective as a counsellor. You won't, because you can't tell them stuff. I would have struggled with it.
Oh,
because
100%.
in the session with hypnotherapy, I'll say to people, this is what I get, this is what I'm about, just to let you know, how do you feel, or am I permitted? Do I have your permission if anything comes through for me to tell you?
Exactly.
I'm working in that way, which is not conformist. There's no rigidity about it, because we are not rigid. We are, we've got to just go with the flow.
For sure.
Because if you're rigid, you're going to be stifling yourself and your client and the session. Just let it flow and see where that person's going.
That comes with a confidence, though. I think that doesn't matter what you do, whether or not you're doing counselling or whether you're a psychic doing a reading, you need a certain amount of experience and confidence to be able to go with what's in front of you rather than what plan you had for the person before they come in.
That's why I like the psychic world. There's no rules.
No.
Doing things
also, but also culture comes into play as well. And the reason why I say that is because I've got clients in Bulgaria.
Right.
And so I was working with a client, giving her a reading, and my friend was there translating. And so I said to her, I feel you're heavy. I feel there has been something done, but from your father, that has impacted on you. Something that was done to your father that has impacted on you. Next minute, speaking in Bulgarian, crossing themselves. I'm like, okay, I don't understand what you're saying. Please, you know, it's like, Phil, okay, what happened? In the house where Dad was living, in the basement, someone had put in like a replica of a coffin.
Keep seeing things before you say it. It's freaking me out.
And,
Sorry.
and did you see that, my love? Did you
Yeah,
see that?
it's about the fifth
And
time
the
it's happened,
names,
but it's really in sync. It's tripping me. Yeah,
and
sorry.
the names of the family members.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Dodgy.
Okay.
That's
Where, like in a reading, you're not supposed to be anything negative, like we talk here in the UK, but you know, in this instance, you can't turn around and say it's going to be everything's good and no, this is what I see. This is what, you know, I know that there's something that has been done, but we can work with that. And that's where the blessings come into play, because
Yeah,
that,
right.
that lifts that negativity.
yeah.
You bring the light in, you've taken the darkness away. You're shifting the energy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working two different ways in that instance, whether it's hypnotherapy or that, it all comes into play.
Such a cool combination. I wasn't sure how you'd, yeah, like we've talked so much about the differences of past lives, for example, with my style and your style, and then hearing them, how they've combined is just really cool to me. I love it. Lucky clients, so those are drawn to come and see you. That's good.
Oh, yeah. Far out. So many cool tools you can
Mm-hmm.
use and help with. And hopefully you don't get too many clients with gin coming. Cheeky gin coming. So it
Very
sounds like a lot of
cheeky.
work. There's a lot of showers to be had and a
Well,
lot of clicks to be done.
No nail polish to be worn.
Give her a break, everyone.
I'll make you laugh. I had I was going to say there was, oh, I was going to recount something. Yes, last year I helped out on Steve's
Just
course.
yeah, she's seen it at the same time. So Xavier, what is it?
Really, I'm so
What is it?
confused
What is it?
today. No,
Tell me.
not then, but I've just been so tripping out this whole conversation, the amount of time I've heard you say something in my head before you said it. And I'm like, why are we so in sync?
There's a connection. There's something there. Maybe
Very
we were
interesting.
together.
Yeah.
But oops, my tummy. So I was helping out on the course, and it's like, okay, Phil, we're going to demonstrate now. Be seated. What are we working with? Okay, so Phil wants to find out about her spirituality. What's all that about? Where's that come from? God, I sound really like North London, you know. So it's like, okay, gone into trance, and I go quite quickly. I don't need to be faffing around because
Psychics, that's psychics. Every psychic I've
It is,
worked with in trance, it's like
yeah, we don't.
the
Because
induction
it's an
lasts a
automatic
minute and a half.
Yeah, when he's done it to me, I'm just like, I'm there.
You're like, yeah,
Why are you
you're
still
like, I'm
talking?
already there. Come on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tell
You're
me.
in the altered state because you're already operating from an altered state.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're working with, you know, whether be it psychic or mediumistically, you're already in the altered state.
You're half in,
So,
half out already. Yeah. So
yeah, I don't know which part is, but
bottom
Yeah,
half.
you're there. You're there.
you're there. So I'm in there in trance, and what do you see? I'm like, oh, it's bright. He's like, oh, you're spirit. You're in spirit. No. It's bright. The sun's on my eyes. It's bright. That's why I can't see. I'm outside. It's bright. It's sunny. Okay. We'll look down at your arms and and my skin was like leather, you know, like the color of leather. Yeah. I'm a Bedouin woman. I'm an old Bedouin woman. Got 2 tattoos here as well. I'm like, oh, it just felt really cool though, honestly. I didn't feel after, you know, some people get scared of getting older, but if this felt really good, yeah. What do you see? Oh, I've got a tent, got bits and pieces inside it. Thinking there's no one around, but oh, what's that? There's people coming. Getting a chill again. I'm a healer. I'm a healer. I'm here to help them somehow. And I think they had a go. You know, like it's when it's like a bit of a mirage. You know, like the heat when it comes off the sand or off the tarmac. You've got that kind of shimmery kind of feel to it or look to it. Yeah, it was like that. I was kind of, yeah, they're coming, and can't remember what happened after that. But I remember going into spirit, and that's where I got the message. They will come. You may be on the peripheral of society because there was no other tents there. People are having to come to me from wherever they're coming, but they will come. And I didn't want to come back. It's like, Phil, you're coming back. I'm like, no, this is such a good feeling. This is such a good feeling. Let me anchor it in. It felt so good. It just felt so right. It just felt like, wow, like a revelation. It felt like a revelation. It was a revelation. And they haven't stopped coming. But what's really crazy is that I was so energized that night. I went home and was up till midnight making candles, which I then gifted to the people on the course.
Oh, wow.
And that felt good. That felt good. And then yeah. Thank
you very much for coming on. It was really interesting seeing what it would be like if Xavier and I were one person. And I think I've learned a lot from this, but it's great that just shows there's so many different ways that people can connect with their own healing. You know, healing comes from within you. It doesn't come from us. But we're just kind of the tool, and it's great to see that there's a lot of tools.
Yeah, I say the conduit.
The conduit,
Love it. Awesome.
So it's good to see that there's so many different types, and
the more we understand, or the more we have in our own library and our understanding, you know, the easier it is in helping others, because we can relate, or we can, okay, certain things tie up because we know about that. So our knowledge and our understanding helps more than anything, if that makes sense. Because we ain't scratching our heads. We ain't scratching our heads because we already know to a degree.
Yeah.
Well, you guys do.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it.
Yep. Thank you.
Keep an open mind. You're very welcome. I'm going to go and have to shower now.
I'll send
you the video of that, Xavier.
Thanks. Just need this unreleased form. No worries, and I'll merge a couple of videos together.
What? That's so strange. I don't even know where that's coming from, but thank you, listeners. Thanks for hanging in there. Love you heaps, Phil. Great to have you on.
Thank you, Phil.
Very welcome.
Keep it up. And if you want to get in touch with Phil, we'll have details in the description as well. Because she's pretty handy.
There is a serious side, but it's always tinged with a bit of humor. There is a serious side, but it's humor too, because otherwise we'd be crying our eyes out. That keeps us grounded, the humor.
Can't take life too seriously.
Yeah. No, I guess not. Thank you. Much love.
Much love. Thank you. Good evening, guys. Enjoy. Have a good night. Love you loads. Bye.
That's it for another episode, but that doesn't have to be the end of the conversation.
Feel free to leave your comments on our YouTube channel, or for those podcast listeners, you can email us at mickandthepsychic@gmail.com to leave your feedback or questions.
I'm a certified hypnotherapist and timeline regression therapist. If you wish to contact me to explore the source of an issue you're facing, just book a session at hearnhypnosis.com.au and include the promo code MATP for 10% off. You can contact me on Insta and Facebook at hearnhypnosis.
Check out my website at optimisticxavier.com.au if you feel you'd like to connect with me as a psychic medium, spiritual mentor, or intuitive coach. Include the promo code MATP for 10% discount. You can also find me on Insta, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
We look forward to connecting with you again next time as we attempt to leave no stone unturned.
Bye.
All right, cool. I reckon that should be okay.